All right, good morning and good evening, Mr. X's class. We're here to talk about the word element, which is a level 4 word for today. It's actually not Wednesday, it's Thursday, November 5th. An element is a noun. There are two meanings of element on your card, but I want to add one more. So on the card it says, first meaning, a necessary or typical part of something. So it's a part of something that is important, that is necessary. So, for example, we talk about literary element in English class. Plot, setting, and character are elements of a story. They're necessary or typical parts. So we could say plot, setting, and character are some of the elements of a successful story. So if you don't have them, if you have a story with no plot, there are some modern stories with no plot, but it's more difficult to make a successful story with no plot. People will be bored if nothing happens, right? So, or if it's not clear what the setting is, that can be confusing. So in many typical stories, you have those parts. Those are parts that you usually have in most stories, and they're usually considered important part of stories. So it's anytime when you talk about an important part of something. So you could talk about the element of a class, the element of what are some elements of the design of a house? In a house, you need a bathroom, a kitchen, or you need somewhere to cook. You need somewhere to go to the bathroom, and you need somewhere to sleep. I guess you could say that's the most basic, right? And then those are necessary elements in a house. If you don't have those things, you can't really call it a house. And you need a roof, and you need walls, right? And you need, I guess that's the basic thing that you need. So those are elements in building a house. You need those things, basic parts. So I put an example here. Interesting lessons are an important element in student motivation. So I think that to get students interested in what you're learning, we need to have interesting lessons. If the lessons are boring, then you won't be interested. So that's what that sentence means. Number two is, this one I was a little confused by, but then when I looked at the example, I understood. So the definition is a small amount of a quality. Really, you use this with certain expressions, like especially element of truth. An element of truth means a small amount of truth. So it's like if somebody tells you something that's mostly fake or invented, but there's a little bit of truth. You could say something like, so there is an element of truth in his statements, what he said, but he invented most of it. Most of it is fake, but there's a little bit of truth. That's that meaning of element. Or you could say, I don't know, we could discuss, is there an element of truth in stereotypes or not?
Yes.
It could be a discussion, right? Some people say, no, absolutely not, but where does the stereotype come from? So it's a good discussion. But you could use it for that, for example. Is there a little bit of truth? Let's see. Then the third definition I want you to add. It's not on your card, but I think it's important to know, and you're supposed to use these words in different situations, like in science class. So you can write this on your card. Noun 3, if you have space. A simple chemical substance that consists of atoms of only one type. So that's like if you see the periodic table in science class, and elements are like the most basic things that the world is made of. Well, it could be physical, like solids, liquids, and gases. They all have different elements, like oxygen. If you look at oxygen, like the very, very smallest level, it doesn't have anything else inside it. It just has oxygen atoms. If you look at water, for example, water is not an element. Water has two elements. It has hydrogen and oxygen that are mixed together. An element is a substance that has atoms of only one type. So I think that's important to know. So I have a sentence here, gold, hydrogen, and oxygen are elements. And for next year, I'm going to fix that and add it to the card. I think it should be there. In Spanish, the word element is elemento. Word families, there's just one, which is elemental with A-L. A-L, you guys should see by now, we see lots of words with A-L. A-L is an adjective. If you put A-L on something, it makes it an adjective. It's a suffix. An ending makes it an adjective. Elemental means basic or essential, like having to do with this meaning, necessary. So, like an elemental, I don't know, we could say, any sentence like this, we could say, interesting lessons are elemental. Are an important element, you could say they're elemental in student motivation. Describing something, saying that it's basic or essential or necessary. That's elemental. Synonyms, bit and unit you guys have on there. I would say bit is like number 2. Unit, also kind of number 2. So I added, maybe you can add a key part, which is like for number 1, because number 1 is, I think it's good to have a synonym for definition 1. I think definition 1 is the most common definition of element, plus the number 3 for science. And no antonyms. Okay, so are there any questions about elements? All right, thank you very much for watching, and thank you for